Hi guys, it's Dakota. Welcome to my channel. I hope everybody's doing well. All right, so the name of this video has something to do with familiars. um, yes, sort of. A little bit of history before we start. Um, a familiar comes from the Latin family, and it was familiaris, I believe, is how that was pronounced. And that means household servant in Latin. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions about an actual familiar. Maybe I know that a lot of people think, oh, I have a black cat, that's my familiar, or I have a cat, that's my familiar, or my dog, my horse, my chicken. You know, uh, it can be a wildlife animal, it can be a spirit uh, entity, whether you can see it or you don't see it, you just feel it, you just know. But I think the thing that I want to emphasize here is familiaris is household servant. So that's what it meant. Family. It was household servant. And I for one can tell you that my cat is not any kind of servant whatsoever. How dare you even think that? If anything, it's me. We are his servants. The only animal that I've ever had pet wise that could have been, in my opinion, considered a familiar was I had a Rottweiler. And I will just say this, he wasn't exactly stranger friendly. So if you came to the door and he barked, that was a way of protecting me and scaring off whoever was at the door. So there's that servitude right there. Um, but I think just because, we have these ideas that, well, if as a witch, I have a black cat, that's my familiar, not necessarily, at least in my own humble opinion, um, and according to the word familiar, and breaking that down, and that it actually breaks down to household servant. So, yeah, so none of my pets are my servants, none of my wildlife are servants. I serve them, I feed them, I do for them. I try my best to keep them safe, keep them healthy. My cat, if you ever came to my house, you would never see him because he runs and hides under the bed. So it's not like I can send him out to do a deed. I have not, and I'm going to just let you know this up front. I have not ever, have I, studied not a modern book, but history about the familiar. What I know about familiar comes from a book from witchcraft history, in that they thought that the witches, and this is going back to the 13, 14, 15, 1600s, that that the animals were the cat of the witch was a familiar. But most of the witches lived out in the country, out in the middle of nowhere, and people were afraid of them. They didn't have any friends, they didn't have any money, whatever. And they had their animals, and so they just put two and two together, and oh, they put a spell on the cat to make the cat do the evil deed, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't there then. And that is just some of the folklore, you know, that you read through some of the books. Your modern books, there's one out there that talks about familiars that I know that I've not read page by page by page. I've sort of scanned through it that, and I'm not going to give the name. It's a fairly new book. It's on the bookshelves, but it talks about different animals being familiars. And I just read one, you know, that, but it doesn't go into that part about, you know, the familiaris, that it means household servant. So that the household servant, it's just that, it's there to serve the household. I always think of little Dobby. Remember Dobby from Harry Potter? You know, Dobby was a household servant. He did as he was told. That was his job. And so that is not that I got my history from Harry Potter by any means, but that is how I have learned the history of a familiar as a servant. So in magic and witchcraft, you know, the servants are there to do tasks for us. Whether that is a magical task that needs doing, you can put that on your servant and, you know, enchant them to go out and do the work, you know, for you, kind of thing. Some people, so that's just kind of what I want to say about the familiar. As far, and this is me and my opinion, so I don't need the hate mail, because I'm not saying that is law, that is the way it is. Just from my research, my resources, what I know, what I've been taught, what I've been told. There you go. And what feels right to me, you know. So it kind of makes sense to me, especially when, you know, I've said this before to somebody about my cat definitely not being a servant, and they're like, well, maybe the cat isn't your servant, you know, maybe that's not your familiar. Yeah, he's not. Trust me, he's not. Nor was my black cat, nor was my other cat. Is there a familiar feeling? Is there maybe you know, a familiar soul presence that you feel, a familiar something about your pet that it's familiar? Yes, absolutely. But I'm talking about the familiar that is the familiaris that does the work, the servant, the household servant. So years and years ago, I was tasked with a project to, and I'm just going to go into some simple details. I don't want to go and make this, you know, hours long, but the simple detail of it was that I was to create, now this is going to sound really weird, but I was to create basically a servant, a familiar. Um, and, you know, I don't know if at the, and I just found this recently in some notes, because let me just backtrack a little bit. I'm getting ready to do a class this next month, at my store, not about familiars. And I was going through all of my old notebooks. I mean, you guys, I have hundreds and hundreds of these books. Look, with just, and not only that, I have these hundreds and hundreds of these notepads that when there is if I have an idea, if I have a thought, if I feel like that was a message or that was you know, a thing, synchronicity, whatever it was, I try to write them down. I have them everywhere. My car, my purse, by my bed, next to my chair. I mean, they're everywhere. Because my memory, yeah, I don't really have one. um, but I was going through my notes, going through some old notebooks, looking for some information that I had about this class that I'm getting ready to teach this next month, March, which is starts next month starts tomorrow. March 1st is tomorrow, and I came across, excuse me, and I came across this task, this assignment, this thing that I was to do. And it brought back memories, and I was like, oh man, I remember that, you know? And what I remembered about it was that, one, I'm not saying that, so I really don't know if it was just not explained to me in a manner that my brain could conceive, that I could understand what was being said to me and told to me and all of that. My notes were very vague. They were very vague. And I was a pretty good note taker. So I just don't know. I am a pretty good note taker. I just don't know if, I know that when it was being explained to me that I wasn't digging it. You know, I was like, eh. And, but I was assigned the task. So when I'm assigned something, um, whether it's a homework or whatever it is, I am going to give everything that I have. I'm going to give my 110%. I might research it. I might dissect it. I'm going to ask all the questions. Why? How come? What is? You know, all of the questions. I'm just going to see what is involved with this. The reason I do that is because you know, if you watched any of my videos, I'm a firm believer in knowing and understanding the roots and the foundation of your work. If you don't know it, then why are you doing it? If you don't know, if it's just because it's pretty, it's aesthetic, it's, oh, I heard, but you haven't researched it, I mean, then you don't know. So I do a lot of research and a lot of work before I do anything. Um, I don't do all the research and all the work that I should, but I do research it, and I do learn about it before I do it. So anyway, so I was surprised that my notes were very vague, and but I remembered doing this assignment, and I was like, wow, I remember that. So what the assignment was, basically, why I'm talking about familiar, was, and I'm not saying this is word for word, but it was creating a familiar, creating it, creating this magical servant that is going to do this work for you. And I know that there are other things out there that have a similar tone to it, and I'm not going there. I'm just talking about this. Um, so I was to create this magical servant. That's what I'm going to call it, to do whatever work I needed it to do. Well, at the time, I had been studying tarot. I had finally gotten serious about tarot and started really researching it and studying it, and you know, and I was getting really, really disappointed. I was getting really kind of bored with it. Excuse me. I felt like all the books that I was reading, they all kind of said the same thing. And I'm talking mostly about the Smith Waite deck, the Rider, and a lot of you know it as the Rider Waite. Um, and I mean, you'd pull a card and whatever the card was, let's just use the Fool because that was the first card in the deck. Oh, the Fool is this, this, this. And if you went to another book, the Fool is this, this, this. And they were all like the same. It was the same idea of what the Fool was. Okay, well, so I get that, and I understand that is the root and the foundation, because I resourced this way back before tarot was tarot. Tarot used to be a card game. So, I went back and I did my research and I studied, and I was like, okay, well then, if the underlying the root of this Fool card is XYZ, that's the root and that's the foundation of this card. But there's got to be more to it than that, right? It's not just that. It's not just that. Excuse me. Because sometimes that doesn't apply in your reading, depending on what you're reading. Sometimes that doesn't apply. And so I wanted more. I really wanted more. And I just wasn't getting the clarity that I needed. I am not a psychic and I am not a medium. I have some psychic gifts, but they're not anything that I would brag about at all. I am pretty darn intuitive. I'm pretty intuitive. But for whatever reason, there was a block between my intuitiveness and what the cards were saying, because the books, and I probably had 15 books. They all said the same thing, more or less, about this thing. So I knew that the Fool, that was the root and the foundation. I knew that to be true. But then it hit me. Well, who said that's true? What do you mean that's true? Because it didn't fit with every single reading that I did. It just didn't fit. So when it came down to my assignment, I thought, all right, I am going to create a magical familiar that is going to open up my intuition, that is going to speak to the spirit guides of tarot and divination, and whatever he felt like he needed to do, the card needed to do, as a magical familiar. That's what I was going to create. So the end result was incredibly powerful, incredibly mind-blowing, incredibly wow. I mean, it truly, truly was. And this is coming from me, who said, yeah, I don't know, it sounds kind of silly, I don't, that doesn't make sense to me, I don't know. And so either the instruction wasn't clear or I was not quite grasping the instruction. Either way, I put 100% work into my project and the end result was phenomenal. So I have used it. I have used that, not that same one, but I have used that technique several times. So I haven't used it in years though, years. So I decided that I was going to share that with you today. And here's why. I am putting together, when COVID happened and my store was closed, plug, and my store was closed, I was bored. And I decided at that time that I wanted to create a tarot course for my store. And because, I have a Witchcraft 101 class. It's a year-long course that I teach. And then throughout the year, monthly, usually not every month, but throughout the year, there are individual classes that we'll do, like one class a month. I'm a Reiki master teacher, so we do attunements. There's all these things, right? And yet I haven't done anything about tarot. And I read at the store, and I thought, and every day people come in and they want to know, oh, I want this deck, and they've heard all the rumors about, you know, the decks and how you're supposed to get them and how you're not supposed to get them and all the things. How do I read them? My gosh, you know, there's 78 cards. How do I memorize them? All of the things. So I thought, okay, that's it. I'm going to do this class on tarot. I'm going to write it. And what's really interesting is my technique in reading now um, is a combination of my own intuition, as well as I did take a year-long course for, which was basic tarot, just teaching you this is the Fool card and this is this and this is what this means, and book. It was book. But it was unique, and we did have a really, really wonderful study group, and once you're a member, you're always a member. So that has been very, very helpful, or did in the past. I haven't been on there in a while. And then I decided to take this other class. Somebody had mentioned to me, because I had a different way of looking at the cards, but it was sort of all over the place, I guess. And which, yeah, I am a squirrel. Um, hey, maybe the squirrel is my familiar. And they said, you know, you should take this course. It was 3 months long, and it was really, really reasonable. I was like, all right. So I did, and I will say that I did not care for the instructor. However, the class, what they taught, again, was this, whoop, this aha, like, what? Oh my gosh, I get it. Like, I got it. I got it. Now, it doesn't apply to all card layouts. Maybe it doesn't apply to Celtic Cross. I don't use the Celtic Cross at the store for my readings. It's long, it's involved, and but for a simple reading with some depth to it, it's fabulous. Works really good. So that's what I'm going to show you today, because I have, like I said, in 2020, I started writing the tarot course, have not given the class yet, because every time I think it's done, I go to reread it and I have to change something. I want to add this, I want to take this out, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and there's exercises and practice and all of this stuff, and it's doubting. It's doubting. I know that. I know that it's doubting, and that would there be enough interest? All of those things, right? So when I came across that note, I went, oh my gosh, I remember that. And like I said, I remember not really being excited about doing it, because I wasn't feeling it. I was like, I don't know, this sounds kind of weird to me. But I did it, and I did it 100%, and the results were phenomenal. So yeah, I think it's something really good. So that is what I'm going to show you today. And let me put the camera down, and I'll show you. Okay, so the first thing, I'm just going to use a white candle. Just I'm actually kind of using it as my my stand because I'm going to use a tarot card. I am going to use a tarot card because, and remember, you can use anything you want. What is your purpose? What is the end result you're looking for? Mine has to deal with tarot, so I thought it would be a good idea for me to use tarot. I am using the Magician. I am going to use the Magician. I didn't draw it, but you can draw it. Shuffle your cards and draw one if you want. I decided to use the Magician myself. A few reasons. One is, to me, the Magician, without thinking about tarot, the Magician, he's magic. You know, he's like a magician, like in magic, not in witchcraft magic. And when I look at the Magician, tarot magician, I can see, you know, he tells us all of the tools that you need for what it is that you want to accomplish, your goals, your end result, are right in front of you. They're right here on the table. And all you have to do is, ask above and you will seek it below. And there's more to it than that, folks. There's more to it than that. I'm just giving you this really simple thing. And the information, the knowledge and the information that you're going to receive every day, every minute is infinite. And there you have the infinity symbol above his head. And that's what that represents to me, is that it's infinite. In reading tarot, there's an infinite number of ways that you can interpret the cards. Because like I said, if you read all the books, read my 15 books. And in 15 books, if you read about the Fool or you read about the Magician, it's going to tell you basically the same thing. There's a root foundation to that meaning. There's a reason why all those books say the same thing. And that is because there's a consensus that that is the root meaning, the root foundation of the card. And I totally believe that. I trust that, and I totally believe that. However, I also believe in intuition, and I believe in opening up your powers. And I don't have a familiar. Like I said, my cat is not my familiar. My horse is not my familiar. I do not have a pet that is a familiar. They're lovers. they're my lovers. They're sweet. I smooch on them. I hug them. I kiss them. They give me comfort. They help relax me. They're comforting, except for the cat. He's a little, you know what. But I love him. He's a brat, but he's funny. And but in no way are they in my familiars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Magician because, like I said, I have some doubts, some self-doubts, lack of confidence, believe it or not, yes, lack of confidence. And I just want to make sure that I am extremely clear when I offer this class, which I have told myself it is happening this year, and I've already started doing work on that. So that hopefully will be coming up late spring, early summer when the weather gets a little bit warmer, because our class is in another building and etc. Okay, there's no heating or air. We have to have little air conditioners and heaters. Okay, so I'm going to use the Magician because the Magician, like I said, he's telling me that everything I need is right before me. All I got to do is reach down, ask your spirit guides, ask the energies above, and they're going to deliver them below, and it's right here on the table. So I'm using him. He is going to be my magical familiar. I am creating him. I am creating a familiar, for lack of better words. That's what I'm doing. I have my little saucer here. It's a little magical saucer for, I think it was for tea leaf reading. And I'm going to take my candle and I'm going to sit it on there. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is just for looks. However, for you, I'm sorry, for the video. But I'm going to print this out on my printer, and I'm going to cut the card out, and then I'm going to tape it to the jar. For now, I'm just going to have to I'm going to put this here just to show you what it's going to look like, but you'll see why I'm going to pull the card here in a second. All right, so I've got the card. My intention has already been written out. I have that in the space where I'm going to be doing this work. It's in the house, in my devotion room. So I'm going to, okay, so I'm going to show you. So this is going to be taped to my candle. I'm just using a white candle because it's what I had, all right? So it's going to be printed out, and it's going to be taped or glued to my jar. My jar is going to be sitting in the middle of my saucer here. I'm going to hold the card because it won't stay put. All right, I have chosen to use orange carnelian because to help activate it, because I feel like carnelian is it's an energy stone. It's a motivator. It is for creativity. it corresponds with your sacral chakra, and that is about our creativity. So this is going to be up here, and I'm going to just place the carnelian on my tray, on my little saucer here. The next thing I'm going to use is lapis lazuli. This is lapis lazuli, and typically this is for third eye. So this is about that spirit connection, you know, the upper realms, spirit guides, maybe ancestors. It's that ethereal energy that you're looking for to help with the manifestation. And so because it is also about that manifestation and communication and all of that, it works really well with carnelian. So I'm going to add carnelian to my mix. And these are just to help activate some energy, you know, to give the magician some motivation. The next stone I'm going to use is a tiger's eye, just a gold tiger's eye. Now, a lot of people use gold tiger's eye for protection, and I guess in this case, well, first let me tell you that tiger eye actually is also really good for taking risks, helping you to take risks. And the thing with taking a risk is, if we don't ever take a risk, we're going to remain in the same place that we've been day after day after day after day. So if you want to move on, if you want to gain some wisdom, if you want to gain some motivation, if you want to finish that art project that you're working on, you have to take a risk. You have to do it. And tiger's eye helps with that. So even though it is for protection, it's not keeping anything out in this particular case. It's helping to motivate you and motivate whatever creativity that you have going, and also it could be helping protect energies away from your doubts, from self-doubt, if that makes sense. All right, this I'm just adding, this is a petrified wood. I'm adding this because, as you know, I work with ancestors, and since I am asking, you know, that realm, spirit guides, ancestors, etc., I'm asking my, I'm not asking them, I'm asking my familiar here, my magical familiar that I'm creating, to be in touch with the spirit guides, ancestors, etc. So I'm just going to add that stone as well. Okay. So then this is going to look something like this when it's done. Okay. Then what I'm going to do, maybe that'll stay like that for a minute. Then what I'm going to do is, actually I'm going to hold the card because I don't want it to get, these are cards that I use at my store for reading, so I don't want it to get messed up. This is not the card that I'm going to use. Like I said, I'll probably print this out, and actually I don't use this deck for reading for myself. So I'm going to pull the Magician from a deck that I do use when I do my weekly pull. That's the Transparent Tarot. I will pull the Magician, and I will print that out and use that instead. All right, because I have a different relationship with that deck than I do with this deck, and this work that I'm doing, I'm going to be creating for myself. It's going to be a little bit different, but this is the idea. All right, next I'm taking chicory root, as you know I would. I'm taking chicory root, and you can either just sprinkle it around your candle, your stones. You can even sprinkle it around your table if you want. I personally am not going to put a salt barrier around this because I need him to have free movement, if that makes sense. I think having that tiger's eye, I don't think any energies would be coming in that aren't needed based on what it is I'm doing and my wording for my manifestation. All right, so this is still glued here. Now I'm taking my mandarin peel. Remember, I think I used this. No, I didn't use it last time. I bought some mandarins. Oh, they were delicious. And when I was, I'm eating them, I'm thinking I'm not going to waste this peel. They smelled so good. So I dried it and then I just ground it up. So this is mandarin, but it's the same as orange. And so it's going to help with energy and help with manifestation and creativity. Orange helps with creativity. Okay. I'm going to put this down now because we're going to add, and maybe I won't add it. I won't add it. I'll just pretend like I'm adding it. Sorry. I am going to add ancestor oil to this just because I have asked him to work with spirit guides, ancestors, that upper realm, ethereal realm, whatever. So I'm going to take the ancestor oil and I'm going to use drops of that around either my saucer or not on this, but if you have an area where you want to put it around your table, you can. You could drop some in your candle if you want, or you can anoint, which that might be something that I might do. I'm not going to be using this card. I'm going to just be using a printout. So maybe I can anoint the card or anoint the jar or put couple of drops inside the jar. Then I'm going to add sweet orange. Same thing. I'm going to put it around, maybe anoint, whatever you feel like. And again, the orange is helping to bring about that creativity, that mental powers, really, getting rid of that self-doubt and just really trusting yourself. And then, of course, I'm going to use the orange blossom water. It's orange blossom cologne, I believe, but I use it as water. Smells delicious. And then I'm just going to take this and I would sprinkle that around the bottom there as well. And then I'm going to light my candle. Now, my intention will be underneath, and my intention is literally it's an intention, but it's literally a request. It's a I'm asking him, I'm giving him a sorry, there we go. I'm giving him instructions. This is what you are to do. I have created this servant to do this job for me, this magical servant to do this job for me, to help bring me clarity, to help give me confidence, to help give me the creativity, the clarity that I need, all of those things. I'm going to then light my candle and I'm going to sit before, he's going to have his own little altar. Doesn't have to be anything, just a space where you can have a few minutes to spend to light your candle, close your eyes for a minute, work on that will. What is it that you want him to do? What is it that you want? What is that end result and why? And then you're going to feed it every day. Feed it, whether you're using the oils, whether you're using the water, whether you go out to your garden and clip some flowers or some rosemary or whatever you feel would be something that would feed your request. Okay, feed your request. This is not like an offer. I'm not giving per se an offering to the magician, but to the energy that I have created, the task that I have asked him to do. He will be rewarded. He will be rewarded. And that could be through things that are still continuing to magnify the manifestation, if that makes sense. 7 days. 7 days. So if I start this today, if I go upstairs and I start this today, I will be there tomorrow, the next day, etc. for 7 days working on that. At the end of your 7th day, go ahead and extinguish your candles when you are not there. Don't blow them out. Snuff them out. Do not blow them out. You snuff them out. Put it in a place where it's not going to be disturbed. You don't want to keep moving it and setting it up. So where can you put it where it's going to be set up the entire time? And then again, every day for 7 days, you must feed it. That is so important. You must feed it. So then at the end of your 7th day, you can go into your meditation, go into your gratitudes, go into whatever it is that you want to say. And then when you feel complete, you will snuff your candle. And just like everything, an offering is an offering. The offerings will still be there from day one. I do. I leave them. So think about that. If you're using a food offering, you have to be careful with what it is that you're using. That's why I like to use the oils or the waters. And you could even use a moon water. But at the end, your dish should be fairly full with food, with intention. You can put your oils on your candle. Remember, oils can be flammable, the waters can be flammable, so just be careful, be careful. Make sure that you put your candle out. Snuff it out. You don't blow it out. You snuff it out, finger it, candle snuffer, something over the top. Make sure that it's out. The next day, you're going to repeat that. You need to spend some time with it. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. How much time? What is it worth to you? What is the sacrifice? What is it worth to you? Do that 7 days. When you're done, you are going to dispose of your items eco-friendly wise. So obviously, I would not take this candle and I'm not going to just throw this in the trash can. What do you do with it? Think about it. I know what I do. Think about it. Your offerings. My stones. The stones were not offerings. The stones were used as generators. they were used as motivators. So those will be cleansed, and that energy that I used for the creation of my magical familiar, that will be removed. The energy of the stone is not going to be removed. You're not going to remove, you're not going to remove the energy of a tiger eye. A tiger's eye is a tiger eye. But with the offerings and the oils and the waters and the manifestations and all of that, so it's basically cutting cords with that. If you don't plan on using those stones ever again, you can bury them. It's where they came from, Mother Earth. Bury them deep. Whatever you need to do with those. And then your herbs, as long as they are not toxic to the environment, and same thing, you can bury them or sprinkle them in your garden or whatever you need to do with them. I have heard people taking their leftover herbs and burning them at the end of the 7 day. They go ahead and burn them, and that smoke releases the energy. So I kind of like that idea. I'll see. You'll need probably a charcoal brick or some sort of thing because herbs usually don't burn on their own. So that's what I have. It was long. Oh my gosh, it's a long video. I apologize for that. But I wanted to get that out to you, and I hope that you will try it with something that you have going on. What is the end result that you're looking for? And then the 7 days, that 7 days is so important. I'm telling you that that is super important. And again, your setup can be however you want to do it. This was just my setup, how I'm going to do it. These are the stones I'm using. This is the candle I'm going to use. I am going to use this card, or this the magician. I'm going to glue it on here. I'm using the chicory root. I'm using the what I say it was mandarin. Oh yeah, mandarin. The oils. I'm using all of those. So my offerings, or the other food that I give it. I'm looking right now outside. There's daffodils out there. Maybe, I'm gonna look at the card, and it looks like lilies, roses. There's leaves, water. Why not? He's got a chalice. What do you want to put in there? Wine, whatever. Um, so there you go. That's what I'm going to be doing. That is my short talk on familiar, and what I feel a familiar is. It's not my cat. It's not my horse. Um, and but this is something that I will be recreating. Um, Today was just a show and tell, so I'm going to create it. I'm going to work it, and it will be. So there you go. All right, you guys. Have a good rest of your day, night. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Let your friends know that I'm here, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.